guys, this is Jess Dowd, and I would like to welcome you to the Girl Do It Yourself podcast. Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Girl Do It Yourself podcast. I am your host, Jess Dowd, and this is primarily going to be the final part of the conversation that I had with my good friend Hannah. We sat down and we talked for 2.5 hours. I've already released the first 2 parts of the conversation in 2 of my other episodes. This is going to be just over an hour of us talking about all things from environmental toxins, daily habits, beauty and skincare, vitamins and supplements, and so much more. I'll link the other 2 episodes where we talked about a lot of nutrition related stuff, and then we also hit on a hot topic of vaccines. And then in the second part is mostly focused around raw milk and those types of things. And so I will link both of those episodes in the show notes. But and then this one, this is really the meat of the conversation. If you have ever wanted to pick a mom's brain, like at the playground, while, when she's kind of crunchy and does stuff like that, then this is the episode you need to listen to, because we talk about so many different things. And she has been doing this for over 12 years. I have been doing it very intentionally for about coming up on a year. And before that, I've sort of played around with it for a while. So anyway, yeah, and she makes a bunch of great recommendations. I will link a lot of those in the show notes. And when I went back and re-edited the episode, I took notes for myself. That is how good this conversation was with her and all of the things that she does with her kids and herself and for her family. So if you are interested in any of those topics, this is definitely a great conversation to sit down and listen to. And I mean, we could have probably kept going for another 2 hours, if not more, but we needed to end it at some point. And yeah, we could both keep going on and on about all of this information, but I hope this is a great place for you to start. So let me know what you think, and let me know if you have any questions. I hope you enjoy the conversation. And when I went back and edited, I was laughing along with us in the episode. So I hope you enjoy. Thank you. So let's move on to environmental toxins. Most concerning toxin you think we should all be aware of in our homes, if you can pick just one.
I know. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to pick. I think probably it's like when you're starting out, it would be less like do the low hanging fruit basically, because then you get a win.
Yeah, small wins.
And if you're cutting things out instead of adding things, like, then it's less expensive too, so it's not as overwhelming. Because I know for me personally, and probably for a lot of women, you're dealing with convincing your better half that this is a wise use of our money, and that's hard because it's taken Matt a long time, and now he's like, you're right, because I've been proven right so many times.
I gotta say, the whole red dye thing that's going on right now is so validating.
Yeah.
Because I have been that weird mom for 6 years, 7 years, telling people my kid can't have that because of the red dye. Doctors rolling their eyes at me, giving me some moms have seen that maybe it affects something, that type of response. Now I'm like, damn it. I told you all. I told you. I wish I would have gone further at that time.
Yeah.
That was when Liam was about 2 or 3, and we cut red dye out.
Yeah.
Almost completely out of at least his diet. I didn't focus as much on my diet. Should have been something it should have been a red flag.
Yeah.
For subsequent pregnancies. Seeing it in him, it should have, but it's like, and this is why I asked you to be on, because the way that you talk about things is so approachable and makes it feel less overwhelming. When I was in Arizona and I was starting, because the community around a lot of this can be very like fear mongering
and black and white sometimes. Like you have to do it just this way, and it's like, or
else you're gonna die.
Yes.
It's like going on WebMD. But you have cancer.
I know it doesn't help though, because then you don't do anything. Yeah. Or you tune it out because it's like, I can't handle that.
Exactly.
Right now.
And I was already overwhelmed because I was pregnant. Liam was a handful.
Yeah, it never happens at a time when you have like great mental capacity. It's always like when you're pregnant with your third, and you start to realize EMFs are a thing. And then it was like, wait, what? What? Yeah.
And it spirals. But I went the direction of, this is too much. This is too overwhelming. Shut it out. We focused. We did what we could do about red dye. And I mean, and I've talked about this in one of my other episodes where like I've heard people be like, but how do you do it? Like, my kids love this product, or they're going to want this still. And I've been telling him since he was probably 3-4 years old, you can't have this because it affects the way that you behave. And he's seen enough correlations where he understands it. He was able to figure it out on his own. Like, I don't like the way I feel when I eat this. Yeah. And so every once in a while, he'll still not sneak it, but he'll have it at school or something. And then he'll come home and tell me. He can't lie. Yeah. So he'll be like, oh, I had a bag of Doritos today, but they were so good. I just really wanted them. But for the most part, they understand. And it's just been, the toxins and small steps.
I was talking about low hanging fruit, which is kind of sounds like that was a big bang for your buck. Yes. And I think that's another thing is like, how can you get the most impact? So the first thing that came to mind was fragrance. And because most people, like I walk around the neighborhood, I walk almost every day, and I can smell people's laundry detergent. Yeah. And I think it's just because I'm sensitive to it now.
No, I can smell it.
That it's like it's almost like, oh my gosh. And I think people get desensitized to it, but we have laundry detergent, dryer sheets, you have plug-ins, candles, like anything that has a fragrance to it, you can swap out, and it's usually, or you just cut it out. And I've moved to like beeswax candles.
I've heard great things about beeswax candles.
Smell is amazing. Like I'm still trying to find a Christmas tree scented candle for my husband, and I bought one this year. It was from a really good company, and it was like their fir, pine, and needle, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be great. And he's sitting there and he's like, something is burning. And I'm like, well, it's a candle. He's like, but it smells like something's burning. And I was like, oh no.
I swear our husbands are like the same person, because Will is the same way at Christmas. He wants his Christmas tree. And I did make an exception this year, and I bought the crappy one from the Dollar General. The dark green one.
And I know, and they smell so good.
And I bought 2 of them. It took us about a month intermittently of burning them to go through. It was basically the month of December. Yeah. And then once they were gone, I threw them out, and we move on. But it's so funny that you say that, because
and not everything's gonna be like, it's gonna take time to adjust. It's like when you are shifting your diet and things don't taste quite right. Like nothing tastes as good as a bag of Doritos. But then eventually,
I actually never liked Doritos.
Like anything like that, eventually you get to the point where you're like, this is really gross. Why did I ever like this? But it might take a while.
Krispy Kreme did that for me.
And
I ate one and I was like, this is so gross.
Oh yeah, why am I eating this? Like all the stuff I used to eat as a kid. I don't know. I think your taste buds change. And then
absolutely.
Mentally, like you can reason and better and be like, okay, so maybe it tastes good, or maybe it doesn't too anymore, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it smells good. Yeah.
It's not worth it. And sounds like even Liam's like, it's not worth it. Yep. And my kids have made that connection. But so what I'm saying is, like, you might not find your perfect Christmas scented candle, because I've tried essential oils, like pine essential. It's just not the same. But I'm okay with, I don't have the nice scented dryer sheets, but I have my wool balls that,
Do you put essential oils on them?
I have. You have to make sure you press the essential oil into the ball. This is just like a...
Will it stain the
free
clothes?
Tip. Otherwise, it'll come off and stain your clothes. Oh, it's so much fun. And then
too bad they don't have one that's got like a little thing that you can like pour it into the inside of the... I don't know. It absorbs it from the inside out. I'll add that to my list of business ideas I have.
I just do wool balls right now, and I've cycled through different laundry detergents. Like, you just kind of, and some like don't work. That's the biggest thing I find with
I'm right there
more
right
natural.
now.
I'm almost like baking soda and vinegar work better than some of the natural. And you have to be careful too. Like, I kind of put this in my notes. Was like, there's so much greenwashing and marketing that makes you have to look at labels and ingredients and go, okay, is this what I want? Because it doesn't matter how fancy the packaging is or what they say. And it's the same way with food, like the way they label it. Like, I don't buy eggs. I buy pastured eggs because I figured out that pastured eggs have much darker yolks, which to me is
more
the important thing with
enrichment.
eggs. Because I'll buy all these organic eggs and they're super light yellow, and then I'll buy a pastured egg. Happy Eggs is my favorite brand by far, and you can get those at Walmart. But that's just
I've been getting them from a local woman, actually.
Okay,
sometimes Liam has started to eat like 3 to 4 eggs a day, so we do have to supplement from the store.
I think we definitely have to at least a dozen eggs a day. Really? Maybe more, because we'll eat eggs for breakfast, and then Matt will have boiled eggs, and sometimes we have those for snacks or lunch. But it's a fairly, in the scheme of things, it's a fairly cheap form of protein. Maybe not right now. And you get the fats and
with the prices right now. But
okay, we've been putting up with inflation for so long. It's okay. It'll even out at some point.
I told Will, I'll go 20 grand into debt if that means that we can feed our kids healthy food during this time of their lives. You can always make more money. I mean, I know that's kind of a privileged opinion, but
or you just cut, I'd rather cut other things out. There's a lot of things that we don't do, and that was one of the things that like Matt and I butted heads on, because he was like, in college I spent $30 a month on groceries. He ate ramen noodles. And I'm like, there's so many things wrong with all of that, like with that argument, because our kids are not college students and we don't need to feed them ramen. But I was like, but food, like, is
we just found a really good ramen replacement.
Okay.
From Costco.
No, Lotus Foods has the ramen.
Yes,
but are you talking about like pre-made where you just add water, or are you talking
No. We get organic chicken broth.
Okay.
And he makes the broth.
Okay.
And then puts it with the noodles are the same consistency, and that was what we were struggling with finding, was noodles because Luke would eat. He is like our little college student already. He would just eat ramen noodles and just suck them down. Another thing I've never really liked. There's a lot of weird foods that
cup of noodles. Do you remember the cup of noodles?
I've never like
out of styrofoam
in the microwave,
or the TV dinners. Remember the TV? Even my mom would get the TV dinners, and I'm like, this was like in plastic with a plastic film on.
And then in the microwave.
Yes.
And then heat it all up. And
we have a microwave, but that's a whole nother.
That's
another one where people will be like, what? Like, no, I use the microwave like very rarely.
I've seen that. It's in my peripheral.
Yeah, but it's one of those.
But I don't cook. I just recently just heated up food on the stove instead, and I burnt my finger. I'm like, this is why I use the microwave. But yes, I know there's a whole thing with.
That's why I say start with the low hanging fruit.
And then
throw out your microwave 5 years from now, but right now.
Well, that's the thing. That's kind of cool. Like, you're 12 years into this, and I'm 1 year into this, right? So we're at the extreme ends of this. I mean, I'd say 1 plus or minus because of the red dye. We've been on the outskirts more so than a lot of other people, but not all the way in. Kind of like 1 foot in, 1 foot out is where we've been. And some of it's just the deprogramming. It goes against the grain. And I mean, I even still had a family member a few weeks ago get mad at me for not letting them feed my kid Lay's chips.
Yeah,
and I'm not, and they want to be like, well, why? And I'm like, because that's the decision I'm making right now.
Yeah.
I don't have all of the knowledge yet. I'm not able to just regurgitate facts and scientific studies yet, where I could be like, and this is why, and blah, blah, blah. So I'm just
I'm still not, a lot of things I'm like,
you just trust. I'm like, I know I learned something about it. I know there's a reason why I made that decision. I can't recall that right now because my brain does 12,000 things in a minute. what, like, it was one of those, like, I'm trying to feed your child healthy food.
Yes.
Like, why are you getting mad at me about that?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I'm doing the right thing, and you're still villainizing me for it.
Yeah.
And like, that's, I think, why so many people also have a hard time stepping and moving into that direction, because they're gonna feel that pressure. And what I realized was, until you have that strong why,
yeah,
that reason that you're like, I don't care what other people think, because, and like, sometimes it's because of a sick kid, or you're sick, or, you know, you need that, like, kind of push sometimes. But yeah, that was like, and then there's, you know, seed oils. That was
yeah.
that when I finally realized why I didn't want them eating eating Lay's chips. I was like, oh, that's right, it's the seed oils.
Yeah. Oh, I've read just countless number of books, listened to countless podcasts, read art, like, and I still have trouble, like, with recall. Like,
well, it's like information.
Don't I do that again?
Yeah, it's like information overload.
You're like that like 5 years ago, and I can't remember.
Yeah,
but I think Wellness Mama podcast was one of the ones that I started out on, and she was very approachable too. Okay. And I felt like, okay, she can be a little, like, I will listen to a podcast and be like, or I used to, I should say, not anymore, but I used to when I was first starting out, like, but now I'm like, she does like shorter podcast episodes, and so they're easy to like digest a thought. And she's been around for a really long time.
I'll have to check her out.
Website that you can, but that was kind of my starting point.
Okay.
Because I felt like, 12 years ago, it was hard to buy stuff in the grocery store. Like, you kind of had to go, and now it's, I can shop at Publix, and I can get almost everything that I want. I shop other places occasionally, but Costco, like we were talking about Costco, it's like, it's going more mainstream.
It is. And that's, I think, definitely what's helped me. And also, this summer was when we listened to a podcast on a long drive, and that was we kind of just looked at each other, and at least on the food and that sort of aspect, we knew we were on the same page.
Yeah.
And I've noticed, if I just buy something, like, I switched our dishwasher pods to Blue Land.
Yeah, I haven't used them, but I've heard.
So I just bought them, and was like, okay, this is what we're switching to. Once these ones are gone, and we're gonna move on. And as much as my husband's like the money aspect, he also doesn't disagree with me. It's just harder for him to spend the money than it is for me.
No, I think that's pretty universal.
He doesn't argue with me about it. He doesn't get mad at me at all.
Yeah.
Because it's this. I think it's what he wants that, but it's like, I don't have to beg forgiveness. Oh, I spit on you. Sorry.
No, you didn't. I didn't feel anything.
I am looking in the light. But so, like, as long as if it's something that seems reasonable and it's the direction we're trying to go, he's like, all right, fine. Like, I won't look. I am happy about it. But I've been trying their laundry.
Okay.
Little they're like tablets.
And you feel like it cleans?
It's hard.
Kids, it's like they get stuff on everything, and they wear their clothes so hard.
It's not terrible. We have a huge washer.
Yeah.
It's a commercial sized.
Yeah.
So I have to use 2 to 3 of them. So I'm thinking I might make some of them. I haven't figured out how to do it yet, but I want to do it and actually do a podcast episode on it. I want to make some of my own and maybe combine, like, use some that are more of a commercial from a company, and then supplement, because it's nice, because I can do like a huge load of laundry.
Yeah.
But if it's not getting clean, then I'm having to redo it anyway. So it doesn't make any sense to not use enough. But I did. We just finished the last 2 Costco-sized Gains and fabric softener.
Sometimes I'll add vinegar to where you would put the
fabric softener.
And your clothes don't smell like vinegar.
I know vinegar is it's
a stronger smell, but I don't smell it like on the clothes when I take them out of the dryer. But I think it can help, because I think we have harder water here, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's harder because we were getting, like, before I put the shower filters on, we were getting like mineral staining on our grout. And So I think sometimes that causes it too. It's almost like the laundry detergent doesn't absorb into the clothing, so it can't work.
Okay.
It just kind of
washes away.
And you get that smell, and and then that's when I always am like, okay, this laundry detergent isn't working.
Yeah. We're still trying a few, and that's part of the process, I think. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to mention when you were talking about greenwashing is also paying attention to companies sell.
Yes.
And they then change their ingredients. I just bought Miss Meyer's hand soap, and they were on sale, and I grabbed like 4 of them. They used to be fragrance free and all that stuff. And I was looking at it one day. I don't know why. It was just like, because I thought, I had always, when I had bought it in the past, I had known it was a better option. Yeah. And I just, for some reason, decided to look at the ingredient list, and I was like, what? And I'm guessing it sold. Yeah. What was another one? Native was one that I was surprised. I had always just heard and thought that it was more of a clean. I know it's aluminum free.
Yes.
But
they're more like, there's definitely varying degrees. Because, I mean, you can go to the point where you're just like spraying magnesium oil on your armpits, which burns like hell if you just shave. So don't do that if you just shave. Like, or not, and not shaving, like you have these degrees.
There's a range.
But because Matt uses Native because he likes one
paraben free. The fragrance is too deep of a rabbit hole for me to go down. It was all encompassing, I know, at one point, and there was 80 different things that could fall under it, and half of them were carcinogenic, and it was one of those where it was just easier to just completely avoid it.
Yeah.
But Native, they said it's paraben free, so the fragrances that they do use, in theory, shouldn't be it's like, it's exhausting sometimes.
EWG, the Environmental Working Group, has I think there's another website I found that will show you every ingredient in the product, and then you can click on the name of the ingredient and it will tell you why it's there.
Okay.
I forget the name of that one, but because I've been like having to revamp my skincare. Okay. Not like I was using clean products, but it was like my skin started freaking out in September, and now I'm like, is this, how you go through, like you were talking about, every 7 years you go through like, is this my skin permanently shifting, or is it because of the winter? But then the weather's kind of moderated now, and I'm like, it's not the weather.
Well, your skin looks amazing.
Oh, thank you. So it's more like but it's one of those ones where you can't, it's not like I'm visibly breaking out. It's like little irritated bumps.
Oh, okay.
And so it's almost like
Do you think it's your skincare?
Am I reacting to something?
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's what you're trying to figure out.
I did a bunch of research, and I was reading about fungal acne.
Okay.
Because fungal makes sense with our environment here.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if you're prone to candida or any of that, which I am more prone to that, like yeast infections or anything yeasty.
Okay.
It's gross. But so fungal acne is still considered acne, but it presents differently. And so I found this lady online that she has a whole list of acne safe products, fungal acne safe products, and it's a range. Okay. So it's like, so I've been taking those and popping them into like EWG so I can see what is the rating on this. Because if it's 2 or below, I'm like, okay.
What's the number mean?
It goes all the way up to 5.
And that's worse?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Like
the
0 is we'll get their certification, and then 5 is like the worst.
Okay. Like Dove. Probably.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of surprising. Like, it's surprising when you put different brands in there. But I was going to say the same thing. If you can buy small brand, that's the way I like to go. Like, Etsy a lot of times has great skincare products or any of that.
I've never stuck with anything.
I know. I have a hard time doing that. I'm kind of a junkie. Like, I do. I
don't have much.
Well, Beauty Counter used to be my thing, and they were EWG certified, and I was like, this is perfect, and my skin loved them, and so I was kind of,
Are they done?
A real bummer. They're supposed to be coming back this summer, but it's going to be totally different. Oh. So I'm like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
You're not going to have the products I was using, which is really a bummer because some of them I haven't found really
like alternatives to
alternatives that I love, and I've tried.
Even Primal. You said you've tried Primally Pure. That's one I've heard good things about.
Yeah, Primally Pure is good, but they don't have like Beauty Counter had this oil to milk cleanser that my skin just loved. It was very hydrating, but you could take your makeup off with it. I've tried a couple of different ones from different clean brands, and either my skin doesn't like them or they just don't work the same way. And they had a makeup primer. If you know of a makeup primer, I need one that kind of has it was almost like a moisturizer. And so, because my under eyes are at that point now where they're just dry, and so I would like do the primer, do my concealer, then do the primer again, and they would just look hydrated and kind of glowy. And I can't find a primer. Most of the primers like dry matte, which is what most people want.
I didn't even know there was a primer.
Like, well, it's like before you put your makeup on. I'm not like, as far as doing makeup, I'm not really a junkie. I'm more of a skincare.
The skincare side.
Yeah. I've never been, like, I didn't really start wearing makeup until I was in my 20s, which is...
See, I used to wear a lot more makeup.
Really?
And now I put on mascara.
Yeah.
That's it for the most part. I do have some, like, the broken capillaries from when I was pregnant. They started when I was pregnant.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't know, I've never...
I would rather focus on skincare and not have to slather.
Yes.
Because I watched some makeup videos and I'm like, wait, what number product? I'm like, what is that? I thought you just did 3 other products just like that. And she's like layering it. I'm like, this is like art class, not makeup. And I just want to be able to do like a tinted moisturizer and some eyeshadow mascara.
I still don't know the difference between foundation and concealer.
I'm confused between like concealer for your face. Should it be the same color as under your eye? Because don't we want to lighten and brighten? So I'm like, wait, my younger sister, she's 4 years younger than me, and she's always been the one that was like, I was applying my mascara one day when we were like younger in our 20s, and she's like, is that how you've always done it? And I'm like, yes. And she's like, you're doing it wrong. And I'm like, what? She would always help me. And even now I'll send her pictures or I'll ask her things and she'll be like, you need to do this or try this. And now sometimes she asks me my opinion, which makes me feel good. I'm like, maybe I'm getting somewhere. But I still like, I feel, because I was first born and my mom was very minimal. She still is. She's like, until Beauty Counter, I got her hooked on Beauty Counter, and now I don't know what she's using now, but she had used oil of Olay facial moisturizer my entire life. And I'm like, I don't know how she did that. Because I hop around too much. In fact,
Matt can find a good one.
I know. Well,
good. I don't even know what.
I know.
I've worked with a couple companies over the years that have sent me a bunch of stuff. Yeah. So I just kind of have been just
cycle through
like using whatever I have. Some of I still have stuff that I got from like 5 years ago. It's probably gone bad.
That's my problem, is I don't use stuff up and I'm like, wait, how long have I had this? And well, I'm trying a bunch of new stuff. I kind of built my regimen and I'm like, okay, this is my new, we'll see how my skin likes it and I'll let you know. But because I've done the EWG, and there was this other website I found, I can't remember the name of it now, but I plugged it in and it would tell you all the ingredients. And then the other lady I found, she has an ingredient checker it's specifically for acne. Like you can enter the ingredients and she'll say.
Yeah, the only thing so I have like forehead lines that I have actually noticed have gotten not as deep since we've changed our diet, and I've been doing a couple different like binders and detoxes. I have definitely noticed that they've gotten less creased. I saw someone talking about that once, and I was like, well, for that reason alone, I might be willing to do it, because I don't want to try Botox or anything.
I know.
But I want to do something that can help. What are some of the things that you do on a daily basis that you feel are the most beneficial, that make you feel the best, and you would not trade off?
Because I've, different seasons, I've cycled through so many different things, but what I've kind of like distilled it down to, for me, I try really hard to have a consistent sleep schedule. I feel like sleep is so many years of like having babies,
lack of sleep,
and not like, I didn't realize how horrible my sleep was, because your sleep was just horrible.
Yeah.
But
You're
then
just surviving.
Then I had my third that he would sleep so well, and I'd get like 5 or 6 hour stretches, and I still slept like crap. And so I was like, okay, why am I sleeping so horribly? So that's been something I kind of just really focused in on and I didn't realize that your sleep actually starts with how you wake up. And so one of the things I try to do is I go out on the back porch, like stumble out of bed, and whether there's sun or not, I'm like staring towards the sun, wherever it is, and I do some deep breathing. Usually I do like gratitude, because I like to habit stack, because there's just not enough time. You're just like, I don't have time to like sit there for 15 minutes separately and go through a gratitude list. So I drink a glass of water with minerals in it, and that's kind of my jump start. And then I do red light in the morning. So like I'll sit down and I do some Bible study, prayer time, but I'll sit in front of my red light, and usually I'll have like a facial mask on. So I'm multitasking. I set up a bone broth station in my room, because I realized with my blood sugar, like I need...
What exactly is a bone broth station?
So you could do it tea or coffee, but
because I know bone broth is like a whole thing right now.
Yes. Well,
not right now, but is
yeah. I've been drinking bone broth for a really long time, but usually I would drink it later. So I would like get up, do everything, go on a walk, and then I come home and drink my bone broth. But I think it would mess with my blood sugar, because I'm like, I think with my metabolism, and I think some of the stuff that I'm health-wise that I'm dealing with, it's just better if I have that protein first thing, and extra hydration, minerals. So I set up a little station where I can heat my water, and then I use I forget the brand, but it's at Costco. They have the sticks. It's a powdered. It's clean.
It's a powdered bone broth?
Yes, but because then I'm not heating stuff up on the stove.
You don't have like a container that you gotta pour it out in and stuff?
No, I mean, you could always mix bone broth with a little bit of hot water. I've done that before too, and it warms it up.
So it's like a supplement.
Instant broth. And then I add gelatin, which is probably overkill, but I'm like, get some more protein in there. And so I'll be sitting on that face mask, red light, doing some prayer time, and that just kind of helps me like, okay. And I am not like, this is a new luxury within the last year. Because all of motherhood, Davey would be in the tub while I'm doing this, or my morning routine is 5 minutes, or like there's always a kid in there with me. So
I think that's a really important note, because there's been times where I've seen someone talk about doing whatever, and I'm like, I'm looking at my daily schedule, and I'm like, how could I ever fit that into what I'm trying to do? Yeah. Now
every season has its different.
Yes.
This is a luxury.
Priorities is part of it for sure. There are different ways to prioritize. Getting up earlier, but I don't know about you. If I try to get up early, I got up at 4 the other day because I fell asleep at like 8. I fell asleep really early, and then the puppy woke me up at like 3:45, and I couldn't fall back asleep. So at like 4:30, I was like, well, I have a bathroom to go paint. Yeah. I was still working on that project. And so I was like, well, screw it. I'll get up. Whatever. Logan was up 15 minutes later. Yeah. And they don't normally get up that early. No. And it was like, this is why I don't get up early, because a child almost always follows me out of bed. It's like they can sense me. But if I'm in bed, they stay in bed. Yeah. But if I'm up trying to get... but if I get up, I'm like,
I know.
It is 4:45. Why are you awake?
That happened the whole young motherhood years. It would frustrate me because I'm not really a night owl. And I'm just a sleep person. Just let me.
I don't get a lot of sleep, but I have never had a problem falling asleep or staying asleep. Yeah. Unless I get woken up like I did that one morning. That happens like once a quarter. Yeah. Where I'm up and then as soon as my brain turns on, it's done. Yeah, but if I can get up, I don't even wake up to go to the bathroom, which might mean I'm dehydrated, but
it's not if you time it right. Because I try not to drink too late,
I've been doing a glass of salt and lemon water in the morning. You were the one who I said, oh, I'm peeing all the time. And you're like, well, did you put salt in your water? And I was like, ew, why would I do that?
Yes. Or, yeah.
I was like, Hannah, gross.
Minerals.
And now I do the Celtic mineral sea salt. Yeah. But I still hate salt. I don't know why. My taste buds.
Does it taste super salty?
Yes.
Then, yeah, that means that you need it, though. So just go a little bit.
So I do the lemon in it.
Yeah.
And I'll either do organic lemon juice or squeeze a fresh lemon, depends on what we have. And I'll drink that first thing in the morning. And I do not pee as often. And I've been drinking a lot more water.
Yeah.
Because we actually cut out Coke. Actually, we've cut out cans. Have you gone down that rabbit hole?
I have. And we use cans, but it's like not something that we use daily. It's like maybe once a week the kids will have a special drink, but I try to buy glass.
I know. We've just started
if
trying.
You're consistently, same way with all the years I worked in an office and drank out of styrofoam. I'm like, pretty sure that probably wasn't very good for me.
Is styrofoam a plastic product? A petroleum product?
I think so. I mean, at least I feel like stuff's leaching into it, especially if you're drinking hot liquids in it.
I mean, which is what most people drink.
What's in the past is past. That's another thing I would say. Like, don't freak out about, oh my gosh, because as a mom, you pile on so much guilt. Like, I wish I could have gone back and done this differently, or I should have done that if I had known this. And it's like, well, you didn't, so it's okay.
Yeah, I just said that the other day. I was going down a little bit of a spiral, and Will was like, why? Like, what are you doing? Like, why? And I'm like, because I feel so guilty. Yeah. Like, I didn't know any better, but I'm kind of pissed because people did know a lot of this information.
Or they should have known. Like, they should have told you.
There's a lot of things that have been, I mean, now we're entering a whole other realm of government, of corruption and all that. That's a whole different 2-hour podcast. That is still, that people are still fighting tooth and nail against, that none of it's true. And it's like, but how many conspiracy theories have now been proven wrong?
I know, because we were watching Parks and Rec the other day. So that was like 10 years ago-ish. But they had a whole episode ridiculing people that didn't believe in fluoride.
Okay.
And I was like, wait a minute, like that was like clearly propaganda going on there, and now we know.
It literally,
it's just like, okay,
reports are finally being released to the public and open to the public, and they're like, oh, maybe that wasn't such a good idea.
So for every time I've gone to the dentist and looked like the crazy mom, no, I don't want fluoride, thank you. No, I don't want them to have fluoride. And now they actually, like, it's not as weird. They'll ask. Or
our dentist, I said that, and their techs were like, yeah, we don't give our kids fluoride either. I'm like,
new generation.
So why are we? But why do we still have to ask for it then?
Yes.
Like,
no.
And like, don't get me wrong. There's a time and a place. Like, Luke has cavities in between his teeth, and they were like, well, the best thing to do for that, so that they don't bother him and they don't get worse while his baby teeth are coming out, is to put fluoride on them. And I'm like, that's okay. Like,
Ava's
that done. Like, doing that once.
But it's focused.
It's intentional.
It's intentional. It's not systemic where you're ingesting it, or it's going into all the mucous membranes in your mouth constantly, day in and day out.
I mean, everywhere. And who knows what that's doing? And it's just,
No, so what I guess saying all, like, when I'm sharing my daily habits, like, this is the season I'm in right now, but this is new for me. Like, I'm like, this is so nice to just be able to.
So your kids get up and they kind of have their morning routines as well now, and they understand, like, mom needs her time.
Like, when I come out of my room, then, they can wake up, and I used to, when they were younger, be like, it's room time. When you wake up, you stay in your area, because usually they had their bedrooms and a bathroom, and they'd have their water, and I'm like, you stay back in your area, you can go to the bathroom, you can play, but you don't come, like, to my room and knock on my door. You give me space, because I'm also one of those people that's like, if I get woken up, I used to get, like, when the kids were really little, because I mean, for years there was a baby sleeping in our bed. So I'd wake up with a kid. But if I got woken up, it was like, I would feel so angry. It was just like, I can't deal with this right now. I need to be able to, like, walk into my day So what I would do all those years, and still, like, I still super busy, got 4 kids and we homeschool. And so it's like, I just kind of fit it into the little moments. Okay. This is, my time. I go on walks, but I kind of break them up. And
has your daughter started to show any interest in joining you for some of it?
She will, but
not quite yet.
I'm still kind of keeping my walks, like, my walk time is like my sacred time. Like, I'll walk with Matt, but it's like that time for me to do deep breathing, or if I want to respond to voice texts, which I can't, it's harder to do at home because I'm constantly getting interrupted. Like, or if I just want to, like, think and process stuff, because that's hard too. Like, you're constantly being interrupted. So
yeah, I give you a lot of credit for homeschooling, even with like little ones at home that aren't technically in school. Like when I drop those kids off at school, those next 6 hours are like, I can breathe.
My morning routine feels, it's like I'm like my own person.
Yeah.
And I don't have to worry about helping other people or the input. And I totally.
I know this past summer, I leaned really hard into getting up, walking out into the backyard. And in the summer, it's easier because the sun is already like up, even by like 6:30. And like, I would do some breathing. I would sometimes just go straight into a yoga.
Yeah.
I mean, technically hot yoga here in Alabama in the summer, like first thing in the morning. I have now started since then adding a glass of water in the morning.
And I think that's great. Like, that's kind of what I've done. And
it shifts one thing at a time.
It shifts from season to season, but as you're learning and you're expanding, like, I'll do that. I'll be like, well, and usually I'll add it to something that I'm already doing. So there's a cue there. Okay, when I'm doing this, I'm going to do this too. And that just makes it easier and more attainable. And my thing has always been, like, a little goes a long way. If you're, you can't be extreme. Because I tend to be that way. I tend to be like, I figure something out and I'm like, okay, we're throwing everything out and we're doing this. But then you run out of steam, or you realize this is really overwhelming, or this isn't going to work. And so it's better. I've learned that with everything, like even supplements. I have so many supplements I've thrown away over the years because you're just like, this isn't working, or it's not doing anything for me.
What's your, like, what have you found is like consistently been something that's been very important for you to
Magnesium.
keep? Magnesium.
100% is.
Do you take it in a drop form or a powder form or a pill form?
I do a couple different forms because I feel like that's how my body works the best. I've had to do a lot of work on my gut, and so
I think we probably all do.
As far as like absorbing nutrients, and like, I don't like to rely on just my gut to absorb what I need. So if I do a supplement, it's like, right now I take magnesium glycinate in capsule form, but then at night I'll use, it's the Earthly Goodnight lotion with magnesium. I think it's chloride, but
there's a couple different
rub
kinds
that
of
on
magnesium.
my legs or my feet or anywhere that I'm sore. And then I do Epsom salt baths occasionally. But I've done drops and the other one I do occasionally. I have to be really careful with it because it's the citrate form, which is great if you're constipated, but it's not great if you like tend towards like nervous stomach kind of stuff. And so I have to be really in tune with my body. Like, I don't need that today. But it's magnesium from moon juice. Okay. And it's like, it has L-theanine in it too. It's supposed to help, like, I do it in the evening, but I'll add it to I'll add it to a little bit of tart cherry juice. If you add some ice and then the magnesium, and I found Costco has sparkling coconut water. Ooh. And it's a really expensive brand, but it's cheaper at Costco. It's the pink, comes out pink, and I forget the name of it, but it's sparkling coconut water. So I'll put some of that on top and then add some minerals, and it's like, you don't need cocktails. Like, it's like my cocktail. I don't do it every night, like I said, and I try to be careful with drinking liquids really close to bedtime, so that I don't have to get up.
Not doing it every day.
Cycling.
Yes,
is super helpful.
For me, I have started to use methylated folate. that is especially for the MTHFR gene mutation, that is like, if you don't have methylated folate in your system, like a whole bunch of other processes aren't even going to be able to happen because the base material isn't available.
Right.
And so I have noticed a big difference in just cognitive function. Mm-hmm. And so like that's kind of one that I've been taking consistently. But it's really nice if I forget to take it, like it's okay.
It's okay, yeah.
And
it's not like a medication.
No, and that, like, we're not good. We don't need to go down medication. No. But I've tried for ADHD, Ritalin, and then Ritalin is a stimulant. I've tried the non-stimulant ones, and we traveled once, and I forgot to bring the non-stimulant ones, and I was only like a week into it, and it helped. Don't get me wrong. I mean, the first time I took Ritalin, I sat down and came up with like 6 business plans and but at the same time, I was like, I can't operate like this on a regular basis. Like this is too much. Like super clear. Like holy shit. Like I was like a super brain computer.
Yeah.
And like I was trying this out when I didn't have kids around. Like intentionally, I wanted to see like without other like. But it was too much. And then I was also getting frustrated with the kids because if I was on it, because I was like, I am focused, I am in it, and then I'm getting interrupted. And it was like too much. So then I was like, all right, well, let me try the non-stimulant. And that was one of the things I really was like, if I don't take this, like, there can be consequences.
Yeah, but if you don't take the folate, then...
Yeah, so...
And it's good. I think it's good to have a break. I always take the weekends off at least. And sometimes I'll just be like, okay, I don't feel like this is improving anything anymore. Magnesium is kind of one of those ones that I feel like I'll probably take some form of it for the rest of my life because we don't get it.
We don't get enough
our
of it.
Soil or the food that we're eating enough. And it's just very basic and it's pretty low risk. Like there's not a lot of risk with it besides maybe pooping too much or something. Shitting your pants. I don't know. Yeah, at least for me, but probably not for most people. But with my gut, it's like super sensitive. Okay. So it depends on, like I said, the form. But I try to do whole food supplements. That's something that I've moved towards. Is less of the I'm just gonna buy this. Some of them aren't synthetic, but like even just the higher quality ones. I'm like, I'm gonna move towards this whole food supplement and away from individual vitamins per se or whatever. Like, and so like
when you say whole food, like
one of the ones I take, it's called Oysterman, and it's oysters.
Okay.
But I can't stand eating oysters.
But they have a bunch of good.
But it's in a capsule form, so to me that's what I would consider a whole food supplement. Or like
it's actually taken from a.
It actually has a food in it. Yeah, or like beef liver right now.
I've been taking one of those.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm taking beef pancreas
Primal
right now.
Queen, I think.
Okay. Yeah, there's that's a market that's blown up because people have realized like we can get so many vitamins and minerals from a whole food but not every oh my gosh, I have tried so many things over the last 12 years and very few of them have I been able to like
stick with,
get down. Liver is one of them. I have tried like buying a grass-fed liver, cutting it up in like tiny little pieces, and then you swallow them like pills. It melts on the way down. Or putting them in the smoothie, and I'm like, it tastes like blood. It's like literally drinking blood. It's so gross. Like I can't even do this. Like I do a lot of things because my kids will look at me and go, "You want us to take what?" And I'm like, "I'm taking it. You can take, like I don't ask them to do anything I don't do." And I'm very conservative with them. But one of the ones I use for them is Manuka honey. It has so much research behind it. It has so many vitamins and minerals in it. And the kids are never going to complain. Like,
does it taste good?
Here's a spoonful. Yeah, it's amazing. And I'll take that. Sometimes I dip mine in bee pollen. Like if you have a bee allergy, you don't want to use
so what's
pollen.
Manuka honey? Manuka
honey is a specific to New Zealand. It comes from a very specific
bee
flower, like bee, but like the Manuka flower.
Oh, okay.
And it's very high. Like there's different levels of it too, which is something I didn't always know. but there's like medicinal levels of it that are great to have on hand if you're actively fighting something. But then the one we take every day, or I don't even take it every day.
Yeah.
Usually I would say like maybe 2 or 3 days a week, I'll set it down and they'll each take, a spoonful of it. But I've also moved to like herbs. Earthly is one company that I love, and they do a multivitamin that's an herbal form.
Okay.
Because I used to give the kids like the gummies and stuff like that.
I can't even get my kids to take the healthy gummies.
But you're like literally on the bottle, it's like 6 gummies, and I'm like, I'm gonna be bankrupt. Like there's no way I can give all 4 of my kids as many. And then I'm like, is it really, at least they didn't like, but yeah, it's like, okay, if they're trying to sneak these, it's probably not something I don't. And then the dentist told me, he said, well, what gets parents is the gummy melatonin, because you give it to your kid and then they go to bed, but they have the gummy in the
use gummy melatonin.
Well, you could give it to him and then brush their teeth, but he's like, we figured out that it's the gummies in general, but like parents give the gummy melatonin.
We used to do the tablet. Yeah. And they were fine with the tablet, but they would start to beg for the melatonin. And it's like, at that point in the day, you don't want to argue anymore. So I'm like, fine, I'll just get the gummy. But I just bought it yesterday, actually.
Well, just give it to him and be like, okay, now we're going to brush your teeth. Because I think that's what, and I did that too. You're just always learning. But anyways, the herbal, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this herbal multivitamin. The whole family can have it. And then it's a dropper in the morning. And I feel
does it taste okay?
They use, so in their formulations, they'll use glycerin instead of alcohol.
Okay.
They do have some with alcohol, which are more like bitey. Like they feel like they kind of burn. But the glycerin is naturally sweeter. And I feel like it's more potent because it's going under their tongue. And it's distilled. I don't know. So that's what we're doing.
I like the idea of doing, because we've tried different gummies or different vitamins, and I've tried the Haya, and I've tried
Haya too, but it's the sugar content. Sometimes I'm like,
I mean, mine wouldn't even take it.
Really?
Yeah. That was...
Haya was the one that there was some colors that kids didn't like, so they pick. And
different colors.
Because then they would say, it goes bad. Like Haya would be like, it goes bad, so when you get your new batch, throw the old batch away. And I'm like, throw it away.
Yeah,
right. I spent a lot of money on
like $50 a bottle or something. I know. And so we haven't been taking any. They haven't been taking anything recently because what did we just? What's the other? It is a gummy.
I think it's so good to cycle. Matt, sometimes he'll get frustrated or he'll tease me because he's like, where did I thought you were doing this brand of toothpaste. Well, 5 years from now, they're going to come out and say, because that's a whole rabbit trail. I was really big on the hydroxyapatite.
Yeah.
Well, now they're starting to come out with conflicting information.
Our dentist was the one who recommended using it.
And I still, I'm like, okay.
Yeah, you never know how things are going to play out in the long run.
This particular podcast I was listening to, she was talking about nano hydroxyapatite, which is in a lot of the toothpaste, but the nano part of it is what causes it. It can cause it to cross the blood-brain barrier. And so they figured out, with sunscreens, with the zinc, they do the non-nano zinc because you don't want the zinc going into your bloodstream. Some things you do, want to cross the blood-brain barrier. Another form of magnesium I take is the 3-in-8. I think that's
I have a powdered complex of magnesium, and I put it in my smoothies.
Okay.
And it's got 6 different ones or something. So I don't know enough. I know magnesium's good. I don't know enough. I don't have the time to research each one individually. So I'm just gonna take them all for now.
Yeah.
And then kind of figure it out later.
Well, it's kind of I think a complex is good. I kind of know which one my body works best with at which times of day, but it can be overwhelming because there are a lot of kinds of.
Yes.
And some of them are not as good as others,
not as important.
Or
it
not
also
as
depends
important.
on the person. I mean, that's the thing that I think has really gotten me frustrated about modern medicine is we've gotten to this point where we believe everyone is the same and everything can be done the same to everyone. And
the food pyramid and the the daily allowances of things, and I'm like, well, maybe you only need 12% or whatever
for men and women
and for kids. Yeah.
No, but that's why functional medicine, I think, is gonna really, I'm really hoping is going to, especially in the next couple of years, have a really good push and be able to convince people. Because like I used to hear people be like, oh, just change your diet. And I'm like, what is that going to do? Like I wasn't educated enough basically to understand that our diet is like one of the most important things you could be doing for your health. Where I at least was taught, and I came to this understanding, which is weird because I came from a very, very physical fitness background in competitive gymnastics. I think if I would have stuck with it for a few more years, I would have become more aware of nutrition in the way that it fueled my body. But I was like 10 or 11 when I quit, so I didn't have to worry yet, right? I was still young enough where I could get away with really eating anything, and I was still doing okay. But just I never fully like it. There was this societal concept that came out that was like laughing at, oh, haha, yeah, diet and exercise. Like that's the answer to all your stupid problems. Like it became this almost like a parody. Like diet and exercise became the parody versus it being what actually we should all be focusing on. And there's people who obviously did continue to focus on that and the whole you are what you eat concept. Again, I thought it was not a joke, but like I don't know. I didn't see it as like actually a solution to anything. Right. Whereas now I'm like, oh.
Yeah, it seems simplistic, but it's actually very nuanced. And there's a whole, so foundational. Because you're eating at least 3 times a day, probably more if you're me. I tend to be like
more of a grazer.
Yeah, I feel like I do better when I have something like every 3 hours or so.
I forget to eat, which is an ADHD thing.
Well, yeah, I mean it depends on the season. Day. If like, when the kids were really little and you're just like, I think moms often undereat because you don't realize how little you are eating. You think you're eating a lot. I think we we inflate it in our minds, but when you start keeping a diary, which I've done a couple different times for different reasons, I'm like, oh, I'm not really eating.
I have the what are the protein bars? They're the refrigerated ones.
The perfect bars.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like they're not super cheap. They're like $2 to $2.50 a bar if you buy them at Costco.
Yeah, the Costco is.
Yeah, they're a good price. And like Will gives me a hard time about it. I'm like, hun, sometimes that's the only reason I eat lunch is if one of those is in the fridge and I can just because I'm so when the kids aren't home, when I'm like I have 5 hours, like I need to get 12 hours worth of stuff done in 5 hours. Like I am on the go all day, like doing I don't even know what half the time. I mean, it is stuff.
Making food could be a full-time job. If I could have one thing, I would have a live-in chef.
Yeah, and I don't even do that.
I don't even make food. I will clean toilets all day long, but give me like literally to just be able to walk out in the morning and I'm like, oh, here's your pastured eggs with your sauteed greens and like fresh orange juice.
Will woke me up with fresh orange juice this morning. He did, yeah. I had a bad headache. I had monsters the last 2 days during when I was trying to work, and I woke up this morning with Actually, I fell asleep with a headache, and I woke up with a headache, and I was like, oh, yesterday was emotional, with the cat. So like I was crying, and that typically creates like extra pressure.
Yeah, I always get headaches.
But it didn't. Usually it goes away overnight, and it didn't. So I'm like, oh, I have an idea of what this might have been.
Those were Matt's holdout.
Monsters.
He would store
ours is still Coke. We will grab like a bottle of Coke, which
there are worse things.
Yeah, there are much worse things. Like
occasionally, like I don't know. Sometimes it's just nice to have.
Well, now they're coming out that alcohol is causing cancer. Yeah. Have you seen that?
I heard that the other day, and I was like, I didn't know that. I've never been a heavy drinker. And
neither have we.
Within the last year, I kind of like I'll have little sips here and there if we go out and Matt gets a drink, but I've cut it out pretty much. And I I kind of just came to that, like, this is not helping me.
Yeah.
It's not like I would always drink to, like, you want to drink to relax or
Yeah.
enjoy yourself. And I always felt horrible afterwards. I think for me, it affects my blood sugar very quickly. And so I always felt like, I think other people,
like, it's not worth it.
No, other people could have a drink or two and it not really impact their blood sugar maybe. But for me, and I think I've always been that way. Caffeine does the same thing. I think it's just, I'm very sensitive.
See, caffeine and alcohol both do like the opposite effect to my brain. That's an ADHD thing too, where caffeine actually destimulates my brain in a way where I can focus better. It calms a lot of my thoughts down and brings things, which for other people it's like it's the opposite, right? So I come down on caffeine, and that's why I've always liked Monsters, is because they have caffeine, they have the B vitamins, which vitamin B was another rabbit hole we went down. But
well, and then synthetic versus like
the cyanocobalamin,
and you're just like.
But the Monsters have always kind of helped me focus and level me down. Whereas, and then alcohol, it relaxes the part of my brain that keeps me in a cage.
Yeah.
Which I guess isn't the opposite, but it definitely it allows, I feel like I can be more open and more myself versus like feeling like I need to I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a
I that part of me definitely, when I drink, it's like you just kind of, I don't know.
Your F's go out the window.
Sometimes I feel like I have a stick up my butt, and when I drink, it's like I just don't.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
For like 30 minutes, and then it's like, and then I feel horrible, or it would disrupt my sleep. There was a whole host of things, but it's like, I'm never gonna say like, Matt gets a really good beer, I'll try it, or because I think for me, I don't see any effect if I drink a little bit.
Yeah. And I know alcohol, it was like, oh man, all those people who are have been leaning on that one glass of red wine a day
for the antioxidants.
Yep, they're gonna be hurting.
That's a whole nother offshoot, because we don't, like, the way that wine is made, specifically in our country, is very toxic.
It's not the way it used to be made.
Yeah, and there's companies that have figured that out, and they do regenerative wines that are much lower in alcohol. They don't have all the, here in the States, they can add up to like 70 different chemical additives to form the taste that you associate with wine. So it's not just the sulfates. My cousin was hired by a winery in California as their chemist. If that tells you,
what?
It's not like, oh, he's crushing grapes. No, he was the chemist. He mixed the chemicals.
It's not real wine anymore.
No. And it's like, what? I thought, like, is nothing sacred?
No, I guess not.
So if you're getting like the really good regenerative wines, or even like if I buy wine, I go to Costco and I get like Italian or French, because they don't do that same stuff.
Yeah, there's a couple of products that we buy that I don't worry about making sure that they say organic, because like the label is in Italian.
Yes.
And it's like imported from Italy, and I'm like, I don't think they screwed with this stuff like we do over here.
No, that's why people can go to Europe and like eat bread and be fine.
And I think folic acid is part of that, because Europe does not do that. And that's why Will can drink imported beer and not get heartburn. But if he drinks local, like American-made beer, the wheat and the grain that they use. But
funny.
All right, well, I think to wrap things up, one final question. So what's a change that you'd like to see that could make things feel more available or accessible?
I feel like what makes it more accessible is more like everyday people living this lifestyle and making it
not weird,
but then also like going, maybe I'll create this, and like basing a company around whatever product, or maybe I'll fill this niche over here, or I see, solving problems. But I think a lot of it is like being able to know someone in your everyday life who lives that lifestyle and makes it approachable, but it just means more people doing it. And so it means, unfortunately, some of us looking like freaks for a long time.
I'd love to see a more local push.
Yeah.
And
yes,
like personal sustainability. So like with my garden, that has been really almost empowering. Like, not that I'm like, I would like to get to a point where the majority of our produce comes from our garden,
which you could do in your backyard.
If we weren't moving, this whole part of the yard would just be it would be a farm field, not a garden. We are going to do a whole new one in the back. All the creeping stuff.
Yeah.
Pumpkins and watermelons and stuff. Yeah. But I think I wish there was like more of a desire from everyone to want to feel more empowered and capable and not reliant on systems that are out of their control.
We're coming back that way. I think we're making that swing because we have a whole generation or two gap where, like, my great grandmother, they farmed.
Yeah, she
knew it all. And then, it petered out. And then, like, my dad and mom's generation, like, they didn't do any of that. And that was when a lot of that before that
got lost. Yeah.
But during that era was when all of the industrials, like the seed oils, margarine, all that stuff, like all the convenience stuff took over. Yes. And then so we lost their generation and almost like I'm in that generation of I have one
oldest millennial, right? Like older millennial?
Yeah.
I'm a mid-millennial.
Okay, yes. But it's like I heard someone describe what we are as centennials because we have 1 foot in one generation basically and 1 foot in another, because I grew up like completely analog. There was no we got internet maybe when I was I 16? I can't remember.
I was in
like my formative years and we didn't have smartphones until my 20s. And so I know that and I remember that very well, but then I'm also in this generation, practically a generation almost two.
Well, I think technology has almost forced generations to, like, we're not doing it, but we should be segmenting age groups into smaller generations because things have changed so rapidly. Yeah. Whereas like it used to be more like every time there was like a world war, we would change a generation, like, or something like that. Whereas now it's like AI is going to be its own.
Yeah. What our kids are gonna.
Yeah.
Well, we have to find a way to overcome that generational the loss of knowledge.
Yeah.
Because the things that weren't passed down to my mom. Yes. She passed some things down to me, but it's not anything like what my great grandmother knew.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, my mom knows how to, she'll can and she bakes bread. She does all that. And I'm more like that than I would say the average person.
Yes.
Like I grew up thinking, I wish I was Laura Ingalls Wilder. Like I want to grow up in the 1800s. And so that's what I would pretend to play as. And that's not normal.
No. Like, well, and I have the same thing where like when I think of history or like in the past, because I studied anthropology and archaeology, my in the past is like the 1800s or earlier.
Yeah.
Whereas like to most people our age or when they think of in the past, they think of like the 50s. Like to them, it's like the generation ahead of them kind of thing. Like one generation ago is like in the past. Whereas like my brain, I jump to like when, what was it? The first settlers like arrived here.
Yeah.
Like that's how far what is it? What was the town? Jamestown.
Yeah.
I just watched a TV show about it a few months ago. And I was like, see, like their entire lives revolved around finding ways to survive.
Yeah, that was it.
And that was it.
Yeah.
And like that was what their problems were over, was like that person's coming on my land, or like, and it's infringing on my ability to survive.
Yeah.
Whereas like convenience is killing us.
Yeah.
I that's like a phrase I've started to.
Well, it makes us weaker and softer because you don't have to. I mean, I see all the pros of.
It's wonderful.
Of modern age, but because we don't, I mean, if I had to survive on my garden, No, we'd all.
I mean, we
dead.
wouldn't survive on this garden, but I'd like to get to a point where at least I'm providing the majority of our produce.
Yes, which is great. And I think that's how we're going to overcome that loss of knowledge is you're gaining that knowledge
I'm
back.
relearning it,
yes, and then you're sharing it with other people, and everybody has their strengths. So.
And my kids are growing up in a garden, and they love it. And they, like, Liam he'll spit out, like, when is it time to harvest this? Because hasn't it been this long? Like, he listens to what I say, and, like, some of it, I'm telling him, I'm just learning this. Like, I don't know for sure. We're all learning this together, really. Yeah. But and then he'll just walk in, he'll like break off a piece of a broccoli and pop it in his mouth, and he's like, I was hungry, I needed a snack. He like takes a little piece of broccoli off, and I'm like, go for it. Like, it's been hard. The hardest thing for me with the garden and the kids is letting go of control, because I want to feel like I'm making sure that everything's being done perfectly, and like I've always been very scared to start a garden or to grow things, because it felt like if you missed the time window, like that's it. Yeah. Like you're done. And down here we have a much more lenient.
It's more forgiving.
Yes, it's much more forgiving. Like in the Northeast, if you didn't have your seeds growing by a certain time, or you didn't plant by a certain time, like you definitely were not going to get anything out of them. Like,
right.
And that was it. Like the winter is not forgiving at all. Here there is a lot more flexibility. And so it's allowed me to feel like I didn't plant that yet. Well, I'll try again later, or I'll put it in now and see what happens. And I've allowed it to be a lot more of like an experiment, and less controlling, and that has been very freeing.
Like if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out.
Yes,
3-4 years now, but it just. I think it helps, like having a more relaxed approach to it. Like if it dies, it dies. We'll just. Go back to the drawing board. And it is nice to live in the climate we live in, because my mom is in Idaho, and her window is very small, and she grew so much food. She's been gardening.
If you have a good plan and a good system in place, I think, but that takes it all.
And she has a lot of free time. She was telling me all the things she was doing. I was like, oh my gosh, like I can barely plant a few. I need to get if I'm going to start anything, I need to start it. But
I have some that I'm not going to need all of it by any means. Peppers and my tomatoes I just planted. I'm hoping they'll sprout soon, but it got cooler than I thought it was going to, and I had them outside, so we'll see how that goes. But all right, well, thank you.
Was fun.
This was.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation, and I just want to say thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you've made it this far into it, it means so much to me to know that even if I'm just helping one or two people, that is more than enough. So if you found this conversation interesting, please recommend it to your mom friends and your family members who you think could benefit from some of this information. That would mean so much to me, and also hopefully help and benefit the people in your life. So thank you. And until next time, stay creative, girl. And remember, you can do it yourself. We got this.